Well, here's two facts to start off this video. I love the half twist throttle on the stock mototec, and I'm a liar. Let's be real, full twist throttle is where it's at, and there are a lot of cheap options available on the World Wide Web, but for a few extra dollars, you can get something truly premium. Normally I cheap out when it comes to accessories like the throttle, but I have to say with the Surron in particular, this is premium with a premium feel. In fact, here's the Surron throttle compared to the full twist throttle of Electro & Co.'s ETM kit. Smooth and silky versus crunchy and plasticky. And this addition was easy with the addition of my far driver, but you can do this to a stock bike as well. It's not plug and play, but it's easy to make it plug and play. And to show you, I put the 60 volt back to stock, all for you. So tap that like button as a thank you. And now that we took care of that, we're gonna immediately take it all apart to get to the wiring again. It's amazing the amount of times I've taken this thing apart and put it back together for the sake of YouTube, probably 30 plus times at this point. Thankfully, it's not too much trouble, and all we need really is this, which is basically the entire wiring harness, and it plugs really easily. This connects to everything on the handlebars, and there are 3 outputs, 2 of which are red. Now those are your brake safety switches for each side, and I haven't used these because I like to actually use the brake and the throttle at the same time. I've simply left these unplugged, and it's perfectly fine to do so. But then that leaves just the one black connector, and this is what goes to your throttle. And it's a little hard to see inside here, but there are 6 pins that go to it, and a lot of people ask if there's a plug and play option that gives you a full twist throttle that will plug directly into this. That answer is no. Especially not the Surron throttle. It has its own style connector, which isn't even this. This is what I put on it. This is what the Surron throttle actually looks like. But either way, that's not what we need. So we have to turn it into something that we can actually use. It might seem scary, but I'm cutting off the plug of the wiring harness and stripping it back so I can see all the individual wires. And these are those wires. We got 6 different wires with 6 different colors. Now a few of these I can discern from other projects with other types of wires. Most of the time they have the same kind of color scheme with things, but I also opened up the old half twist throttle to actually see where these wires were going so that I can confirm that. And what I confirmed is that these 3 wires, red, white, and black, are all for the throttle. But it's not just a twist throttle, there's also the display and there's the kill switch. So we have these 3 wires and we need to find out which ones these go to. So again, looking inside of the half twist throttle, I can see that the kill switch uses the yellow and the blue wires, and then the green wire is the only one that goes up to power the display. So when it comes to these 3 extra wires, I'm actually gonna ignore the yellow and the blue ones entirely because I don't need an extra kill switch. That's what the key's for. But I do wanna be able to add a voltmeter. Now this one only has 1 wire, the green wire, but most voltmeters, including the one that I'm going to be adding here, has 2, which makes sense because most of them all need a positive and a negative. So what's going on here? What's going on here is that the green is the positive in this case, and it's using another wire, this black one, as the negative. So not only do I need to connect these 3 wires to the Surron, but I need to splice this black wire so I can turn it from 1 wire into 2, so that I can use the second one for the green wire and the voltmeter. And we're going to do all that with these, some waterproof connectors that I found as a kit on Amazon, link in the description. In addition to this kit, you're going to need a couple of other things. You're going to need this crimping tool, which I'll also link on Amazon, and a set of wire strippers. So I'll show you what to do starting with the green wire. And first thing we got to do is strip it back a little bit so we can actually see some of the bare wire underneath. Now this bare wire is very thin, is very, very thin gauge wire, so I always like to twist it up just a little bit to make sure that it's kind of more like one solid piece rather than all those individual strands. And then in the kit here, we have a bunch of these little rubber bushing things. This keeps it from getting water inside, so we're going to slide that over top. And then we are going to take one of our metal pins. In this case, I'm going to be making the voltmeter a male end because I actually have the voltmeter already connected and this is the female end, so we got to make sure that those 2 match with each other. And we're going to place this metal piece inside the clamp here and get it in position. So it might be a little hard to see, but right here is the clip and I put it in. So this is the back side of this and it's kind of locked into place with these clamps right here. Then we want to make sure that this wire is pushed in here with the rubber boot. I'll look on the other end to make sure I pulled the wire out enough. And then we're going to give it a hefty squeeze and a tighten. Let off. And there we have it, a nice little male connector. And it's on there. But in order to finish the voltmeter side, I also need to make a second black wire. So what I'm actually going to do is split this down just a little bit more so I have more of the black wire available. And then I'm going to take another piece of black wire that I have laying around and splice it into that wire to make kind of a Y shape. I've done this in another video, which I'll link in the corner so you can see how to turn 1 wire into 2 wires. And there we have it. Isn't it just beautiful? So this is the black wire, or the negatives for both of them, and it turns from 1 into 2. and I have the two connections right here. I actually have a male and a female, two different ones, because the male is going to go for the voltmeter, but the female is going to go for the Surron, because the Surron throttle, I already have the male on the other side of it. So on this side, we have the male again for the voltmeter right here with the green, and wrapping it up, the remaining throttle wires, red and white, both with the female. So now we got to put it into these little container connector things right here, so that way everything clicks into place really easily. I'm going to start with the voltmeter because this is the male end of things, and I already have the female end connected right here. And you can see right here, the red one, which is the positive, is on the bottom, and the black, which is the negative, on top. So I'm going to mirror that on this end and orienting it in the correct manner. That way these two can line up and click into place. And it's got a little tab right here on the top, so it is secured. And now for the fun part, connecting the Surron. And this one is a little bit difficult because this one has a completely different color scheme. So as a reminder, this one is black, red, and white, and it's very similar with the far driver as well, but the Surron uses black, blue, and brown. So when we're lining this up, black and black will obviously be together. They're both the negatives, but what about the blue and what about the brown? Well, thankfully the internet tells us that the brown wire goes to the red wire, and then the blue wire goes to the white wire. So that's exactly how I'm going to line everything up in the new pin for the throttle. And it'll look just like that, black to black, blue to white, and brown to red. Time to find out if we did everything right. So I have the wiring harness plugged back in. I got the voltmeter sitting right here. I have the Surron throttle right here. And most importantly, I have the bike up on the stand in case I turn on the key and this thing goes wrong. I don't want this thing shooting into the side of my car. Let's find out. And right off the bat, we have voltage, 61.4 volts right now. And I think it works.
And yep, we can verify it does in fact work. We are on the stock controller though, so I'm not exactly sure to what extent this is an improvement. We can kind of feel it out here, maybe do some tight circles to see. Yeah, see, it still has that characteristic of the stock controller where it's very, very much an on-off switch. So even though it's a full twist throttle and it's a really nice feeling twist throttle, it doesn't really solve the characteristics of the acceleration in the stock controller. You're still gonna have to go aftermarket for that, far driver or otherwise. However, even though this is still a little bit difficult to use at lower speeds, it still does have that comfort factor of being a full twist throttle. The only reason I can think why they even put a half twist throttle on there to begin with is cost to some effect. It's gotta be cheaper manufacturing a half twist throttle than a full twist throttle, because I see no advantages to the half twist at all.
So while adding the Surron throttle at least gives you a proper throttle to work with, it doesn't solve the throttle response. That's done with a controller swap. So before I go putting the bike back together again, here is the wiring for a far driver harness. As you recall with the Surron throttle, this has a black, blue, and brown, which connects to the far driver's black, green, and red. Also with the voltmeter, we tapped into that same black wire like we did with the throttle, so there's a pigtail right here, and an orange wire, which is also a pigtail from the key switch right here. And I guess while we're here, we can show you everything else. It's pretty self-explanatory. This is the Bluetooth dongle, don't need to mess with that. These are the hall sensor wires, very common and very easy to find out. Then we have the 3-speed switch here, and I'm using the actual mototec switch, so this one uses a black, blue, and red wire, and then the far driver has a yellow, black, and blue wire, but it's actually not wired up with the same kind of colors you would expect. The blue one from the far driver actually goes to black on the mototec, the black goes to blue, and then the yellow goes to red. Keyed switch, like I said, this has 2 wires. There's one orange for the switched power, and then there's one red wire, which actually just goes straight to the far driver with the battery connection. Speaking of battery connection, positive, negative, pretty self-explanatory. 3-phase wires, blue, green, yellow. Again, very self-explanatory.
Ah, now this setup with the far driver controller, that solves the problem. But, you know, I can see why people would want to go with the full twist throttle, especially the Surron full twist throttle, even without a controller swap. It adds a smoothness to the throttle where it doesn't necessarily solve the twitchy problem, but it's a great touch point, and you literally have your hand on this the entire time. I'd still recommend a controller swap too, though, just saying.